Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Dmitry Bivol again proves the naysayers wrong. He defeats Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez on a unanimous decision. Terrific performance by a really brilliant technician and mentally such a strong fighter. I mean, Bivol just doesn't get enough props here. During the build-up to the fight, people commented on Ramirez's size. They said he's going to give Bivol all sorts of trouble. And yeah, Bivol is a small light heavy. He says he can make 168. He was asked post-fight whether he would consider going down to 168 to face Canelo again. He's kind of ummed and ahed, but he probably would if they put enough money on the table. Of course he would. But he says really he wants Bezabiev at light heavy to unify the belts. Bivol is a long-running, long-term WBA champ, well-versed in going the 12-round distance. His last, is it 5 or 6 fights have gone 12 round, maybe even more. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think he's had about 6 or 7 fights in a row that have gone the 12 round distance. And people say the knock against him is he doesn't knock many people out. He hasn't got power. He doesn't try to knock people out. He's quite content to use his considerable skills to pull all those tools out of the toolbox and use them as and when he needs it. And against Zurdo Ramirez, you could be forgiven for thinking that he was going to have a tough night because Zurdo's so damn big. But I thought Bivol would probably win around the 116, 112 mark. In fact, 2 of the judges gave it 117, 111, and 1 gave it 118, 110, which was a little bit unkind to Gilberto Ramirez. I thought he did win a few rounds. So the fight began, and what was striking about it instantly was, first of all, that Zurdo was absolutely enormous for a light heavyweight. He dwarfed Bivol. And how did Zurdo ever make 168? I just don't know. Both these guys are 31. It's not like Zurdo's a kid, and he can take off weight easily. They're both 31. But for virtually the whole duration of the fight, the skill set, the schooling, the slickness, the ring IQ and the mental strength, all those categories, Bivol had an edge. I wouldn't say it looked like man against boy, but it looked like, a good fighter, maybe a very good fighter in with a master technician. And the other thing that was very noticeable from the opening round is that Bivol did not back off. He may have taken a step back or two when Zurdo came forward, but he'd immediately reset and he kept the distance. He controlled the distance absolutely beautifully. And for much of this fight, Bivol's front foot, Bivol is an orthodox fighter, his front foot was touching Ramirez's front foot. Ramirez is a southpaw. And on occasion, I noticed that Bivol would put his foot on top of Zurdo's as if to say, I'm here, this is my territory, I own the geography of this ring, you're second best, mate. And Zurdo was throwing punches coming forward, but it was slightly surprising that he didn't try and use that weight advantage from the word go. I suppose Bivol just didn't allow him to do that. But I kind of thought that although I thought Bivol would win the fight relatively comfortably, I thought the early rounds might be a little bit of a baptism of fire here, with Zurdo putting the heat on him, trying to maybe bully him, ragdoll him, use that weight, maybe even chuck in a few fouls. No. Zurdo stood his ground, but wasn't really being first. The person that was punching first most of the time, was Bivol. And it was disappointing in one sense to see Zurdo not sort of let it hang out more. Because he has, since he's come up to light heavyweight, he's faced, nowhere near Bivol's class, but he's faced, half-decent people he got rid of. Did he beat Jesse Hart? That was down at super middle, wasn't it? Jesse Hart wins. He faced Dominic Bozell. He stopped him in 4, and Unieski Gonzalez, who retired after 10 rounds, and Sullivan Barrera, who he stopped in 4. So these are sort of borderline gatekeeper types, and the jump up to face someone like Bivol was considerable. And I was a little bit surprised that so many people were calling for an upset here. They were thinking this is an upset. I think Bivol, even now, even after beating Canelo, and I know Canelo is so much smaller, but even now, I think Bivol is underrated. I think his ring IQ is amazing. I think his skill set is just fantastic. And I don't understand why he's so underrated. Perhaps because he's not that exciting. Perhaps because he doesn't score many knockouts. It's all unanimous decisions, 12-round unanimous decisions. Yeah, he's not the most exciting fighter. But if you like boxing, this is the guy to watch because he is a good fighter. I mean, I'd put him certainly in the top 5 pound for pound. And there were some good ones out there. Inoue, Usyk, maybe Terence Crawford. You can argue that these people are up there, but why not Bivol? I don't think it's a given that Beterbiev beats him. I think Beterbiev is a beast, but one of the commentators on DAZN said this is going to be, if they do match him up, this is going to be the beast versus the technician, and I think the stars will gel very, very well. And yes, Beterbiev, if he can make the weight comfortably, still has those heavy hands, but the skills of Bivol, I think, can diffuse power. And like I say, I don't think he even tries to knock people out. He did at certain points in this fight, maybe 3 or 4 times. He actually stood in the centre ring and just flailed on Zurdo. And Zurdo didn't like it. Zurdo, the much bigger man. I mean, this really was a case of, the bully being bullied. Terrific stuff from Bivol. Really, really impressive. Didn't put a foot wrong. At no point was he hurt, Bivol. On the contrary, I think if anyone was hurt, it was probably Zurdo. And Zurdo, going into this fight, I mean, it's 44 wins and no defeats, no draws, and 30 knockouts. He didn't come close to knocking out Bivol or to even putting him on the floor. He was just outclassed in terms of skill set. I mean, he's 6'2" and 2.5. I think 6'2", 6'3", something like that. Bivol, 6 foot tall himself, but not nearly as big. Zurdo's thighs were like bloody tree trunks. But you doesn't matter how much power you got. If you can't land the power, if you can't hurt someone, you're whistling Dixie, aren't you? You ain't going to go anywhere. So massive credit to Bivol for this win. It is a fight I thought he'd win, and he probably did it easier than I thought he would. I thought he'd have some sticky patches in the middle, the early rounds, maybe up to rounds 4 or 5, and would probably then take over. But no, he controlled it from the off, really. Zurdo maybe won rounds when Bivol took his foot off the gas just to have a little rest. But even then, Bivol was looking impressive. So what did you think? Did you watch this fight? It was a good fight. Good tactical fight. Beautiful performance by Bivol. Zurdo can come back. Still a good fighter. No shame in losing to Bivol. But what did you think? Leave your comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you could, pretty please. Just hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Dead simple. Cost you nothing. Anyway, thanks for your time. I always appreciate it. I'll read your comments and leave some replies. Until we speak again next time, bye-bye for now. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Much love.